Kelly Clarkson just broke her silence, and what she revealed about Brandon Blackstock has left fans stunned. For years, she kept quiet about the emotional pain, the hidden betrayal, and the secret that nearly cost her everything. From being overcharged millions by her own husband to feeling like a single mother in a broken marriage, Kelly's finally telling the truth. This is not just a divorce story, it's about lies, legal battles, and a woman rebuilding her life from the ground up. What did Brandon really do? Join us. Texas girl to superstar, the making of Kelly Clarkson. Kelly Clarkson didn't come from fame, money, or privilege. She came from a broken home, a town most people haven't heard of, and a place in life where survival, not stardom, was the focus. Her father walked out on her when she was only 6 years old. Her siblings were split up and scattered to different households. She was raised by her schoolteacher mother in a small house in Burleson, Texas, where the bills didn't pay themselves and emotions weren't always safe to express. She went to church twice a week and grew up in a conservative Southern Baptist environment where life was about structure, rules, and respect, but not always about joy. How does a girl like that become one of the most powerful voices of the century? How do you go from a burned-down apartment to selling out arenas? And how does the same girl who once couldn't afford a proper demo become the woman now speaking out against a man who tried to take everything she built? Her life didn't start with a spotlight. It started with rejection. Kelly was just another teenager walking to the halls of Pauline Hughes Middle School when, purely by chance, a choir teacher named Cynthia Glenn overheard her casually singing. That moment changed everything. Glenn pushed Kelly to audition for the school choir, and even though Kelly had never taken a single voice lesson and didn't really believe in her talent, she went for it. She got in. That one decision, saying yes when she could have said no, kicked off a chain reaction that would shape the rest of her life. But the road from Burleson to stardom was brutal. After graduating high school in the year 2000, she was offered full scholarships by some of the most respected music schools in the country, including the University of Texas at Austin, the University of North Texas, and even Berklee College of Music. Most people would have taken the deal. Kelly didn't. She chose to skip college entirely, believing that real-world experience would teach her more than any classroom. Instead, she started working odd jobs, telemarketing, waitressing at a comedy club, handing out Red Bull samples at events just so she could afford studio time to record a demo. That demo was the first big punch in the face. It didn't land her any record deals. She got rejection after rejection, with executives telling her she was too soulful, too emotional, or not marketable enough. Determined not to give up, she moved to Los Angeles in the year 2001 to try again, but things got worse. Not only was she turned away by every major label, but her apartment caught fire and she was left homeless. With nowhere to go and nothing left to try, she returned to Burleson, defeated. She had no idea that within a year, everything was about to change. In the year 2002, on a friend's dare, she auditioned for a new show that no one had heard of yet, American Idol. The format was chaotic. The production was confusing. Contestants were left to figure out things like wardrobe and styling with no help. At one point, they were even dropped off at a mall and told to find something TV-worthy to wear. But none of that mattered. The moment she opened her mouth to sing, everything changed. She didn't just survive that show, she dominated it. On September 4th, 2002, Kelly Clarkson won American Idol with 58% of the vote. She was 20 years old. Her debut single, a double A-side featuring Before Your Love and A Moment Like This, broke records by leaping from number 52 to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. That jump shattered a 38-year-old record previously held by the Beatles. It also marked the beginning of a new kind of star, one built not in boardrooms or studios, but in front of millions of live television viewers. She didn't look like a pop star. She didn't act like one either. But she could outsing almost anyone, and she knew it. Kelly Clarkson didn't just stumble into fame. She clawed her way into it, every note earned, every step uphill. But what she didn't know back then, what no one knew, was that one day, the man who stood beside her on stage and behind her in business would quietly start pulling strings that threatened to unravel everything she had built. And for a long time, she kept that betrayal buried. Until now. It was one of the most explosive revelations in Kelly Clarkson's career, and almost no one saw it coming. In November of 2023, After 3 years of legal silence and speculation, a California labor commissioner awarded Kelly $2.6 million in damages. The reason was her ex-husband, Brandon Blackstock, who, along with his father's company, had been illegally managing her career for years without a license. This was fraud hiding in plain sight, and Kelly, who had once kept her pain behind closed doors, was finally done protecting the man who had built his life on her voice and her trust. Why did she stay quiet for so long? And what exactly did Brandon do that even her fans didn't know until now? Kelly met Brandon Blackstock in the year 2006 at a rehearsal for the Academy of Country Music Awards. He was quiet, professional, and deeply connected. His stepmother was none other than Reba McEntire, one of Kelly's musical idols. Nothing happened back then, but 6 years later, their paths crossed again, and this time something clicked. By December of 2012, they were engaged. By October 2013, they were married. From the outside, it looked like a perfect match. A pop powerhouse and a man who understood the business, shared her love of music, and brought a sense of grounded stability to her chaotic life. They built a blended family. Brandon already had 2 children from a previous marriage, and together they welcomed River Rose in 2014 and Remington Alexander in 2016. Their Instagram posts showed smiling vacations, family sing-alongs, and backstage hugs. Fans called it couple goals. But Kelly later revealed that the reality was much harder to live with. In interviews, she said she often felt like a single parent trapped inside a legal marriage, carrying the emotional labor alone, while also trying to balance superstardom, motherhood, and her talk show. The emotional loneliness was so intense it eventually became unbearable. But even then, she said nothing. Not to the public, not to the press. She just kept going. The first major crack appeared in June of 2020, when Kelly filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. But that was just the surface. What followed was a quiet, methodical uncovering of what had been going on behind the scenes. Brandon Blackstock had not only been her husband, he had also been managing her professional career through his father's company, Starstruck Management Group. But under California law, anyone acting as a talent agent must be licensed. Brandon wasn't. For years, he and Starstruck had been negotiating major deals for Kelly, including sponsorships, live performances, and her role on The Voice, without proper legal authority. In other words, they were illegally pocketing a cut of her income, all while presenting themselves as her trusted advisors. Kelly took them to court. In November of 2023, the California Labor Commissioner ruled in her favor. The court found that Brandon and Starstruck had violated labor code regulations and ordered them to repay Kelly over $2.5 million. This included commissions from deals they were never legally allowed to broker, including her massive contract with The Voice. Brandon immediately filed an appeal. But in May of 2024, just 3 months before the case was set to go to trial, both sides reached a confidential settlement. The details were sealed, but the damage was already public. Brandon had been caught, and Kelly, for the first time in years, was free to tell the truth. In one interview from early 2025, she said plainly, "Nobody knew what he really did. I kept quiet for years because I was trying to protect everyone, but not myself." That line hit hard. It confirmed what many had suspected, that behind the polished exterior, Kelly had been carrying not just heartbreak, but betrayal, manipulation, and financial exploitation. She had protected Brandon to spare her children, to avoid more press drama, and maybe even to convince herself it hadn't been as bad as it felt. But it was. One of the most painful chapters came during the divorce itself, when Brandon refused to leave her Montana ranch. Despite having no legal claim to property, despite losing the argument in court, he stayed on the land for months, dragging the conflict out even further. He was eventually ordered to vacate by June of 2022. But the emotional toll lingered. Since the final settlement in 2024, things have begun to shift. Brandon and Kelly are no longer at war in public. They worked out a co-parenting agreement that allows both River and Remington to have time with their father, while Kelly maintains primary custody. She's moved on, at least logistically, but emotionally, the scars are still there. How does someone survive that kind of betrayal? Not just from a husband, but from someone who profited off your voice while claiming to love you. How do you speak again after years of silence? For Kelly Clarkson, the answer came not in a lawsuit, not in a press statement, but in finally saying the one thing she had held in for too long. He didn't just break my heart. He took advantage of who I was. And now the world knows. By the time Kelly Clarkson filed for divorce in June of 2020, her world had already shifted in quiet but irreversible ways. The public only saw a few headlines: irreconcilable differences, custody petitions, a ranch dispute. But for Kelly, it was a slow unraveling of a life she had worked relentlessly to hold together. For years, she had carried the emotional weight of a relationship that was slowly hollowing her out. She later admitted that she felt like a single mother in her own marriage, raising 2 young children, while also trying to maintain a multi-million-dollar career, a hit talk show, and a public image built on strength and authenticity. Behind her signature smile was a woman trying to hold everything in place while the ground kept shifting beneath her feet. The court granted her primary custody in late 2020, but Brandon wasn't quick to let go. One of the most drawn-out conflicts involved their Montana ranch, a sprawling property Kelly had purchased, which Brandon absolutely refused to move out from. It took nearly 2 years and a court order for him to finally leave in June of 2022. The ranch had once symbolized retreat and family life. Now, it became a flashpoint for a deeper, unspoken truth. Kelly had built something beautiful, and now she had protected from the person who had once shared it with her. And while lawyers negotiated spousal support and asset divisions, Kelly was undergoing a quieter transformation that no one could see, at least not yet. In February of 2022, she legally changed her name to Kelly Brianne. She kept Clarkson for professional use, but the personal change was rooted in something deeper. The name Clarkson had always been tied to her father, Stephen Michael Clarkson, who had abandoned the family when she was 6 years old. She had channeled that abandonment into one of her most heartbreaking songs, Piece by Piece, where she wrote, "He never walked away / he never asked for money / he takes care of me / he loves me." It was a song about her children's father redeeming what her own father failed to do. After the divorce, that song took on a bitter irony. The man she once believed had rewritten her story had, in fact, repeated it. But Kelly has always found her way back to herself through music. In June of 2023, she released her 10th studio album, Chemistry, and it was unlike anything she'd ever put out before. Raw, experimental, and emotionally charged, the album dealt with grief, rage, regret, and the fragile hope of healing. Critics praised it as her most honest and mature work, applauding the way she explored the complexity of emotions without sugarcoating the pain. Fans connected deeply with tracks like Mine and Red Flag Collector, where her lyrics cut through years of silence. That same year, in a cheeky visual promo for her holiday album, Kelly hung 4 stockings by the fireplace. One for herself, one for each of her 2 children, and a 4th labeled simply Nope. It was a lighthearted but unmistakably pointed jab at her ex, and fans loved it. In interviews, she began to speak more openly about her struggles with anxiety, therapy, and the pressure of managing public life while raising 2 young kids. She credited her children with keeping her grounded and said that learning how to show up for them every day was what kept her moving forward. By early 2025, it was clear Kelly wasn't just rebuilding emotionally. She was reinventing everything. After parting ways with Atlantic Records, she made one of the boldest moves of her career. She launched her own independent label, finally taking full control of her creative output. In May of 2025, she released her first indie single, Where Have You Been?, a song she wrote and produced herself. The track was a quiet declaration of independence, both artistically and personally. That summer, she returned to the stage with a new Las Vegas residency titled Kelly Clarkson Studio Sessions, a stripped-back, intimate run of shows set to run from July through November. Meanwhile, the Kelly Clarkson Show entered its 6th season with strong ratings and a loyal audience that connected with her candor and warmth. She also became a behind-the-scenes mentor for up-and-coming artists, many of whom cited her as the reason they entered music in the first place. Industry veterans continued to sing her praises. Billboard called her a phenomenon with an unmatched ability to cross genres and remain emotionally accessible. And Simon Cowell, the man who first helped launch her into stardom, summed it up perfectly. "We didn't make Kelly famous. Kelly made us famous. When the lights are off and the cameras stop rolling, Kelly Clarkson's world revolves around two people, River and Remington. At 10 and 8 years old, her children are not just her top priority. They're the emotional center of her life. After the chaos of her marriage and the pain of public scrutiny, Kelly made one thing very clear. Her kids come first, and everything else comes after. That doesn't mean she's closed off to love, but she's moving forward on her own terms. In May of 2025, during an appearance on Today with Jen and Friends, she shared that she isn't actively dating, but is open to what she called a unicorn moment, something magical, rare, and real. And even that depends on her children's comfort. She revealed that River and Remy have both expressed a wish for her to stay single for now, and instead of brushing off their feelings, Kelly listened. She respects their emotional space as much as her own. So what does life look like for someone who's learned how to live without needing someone else to complete it? According to Friends and recent June 2025 reports, Kelly is cautiously hopeful. She's not rushing into anything, but she is exploring what a future relationship could look like. Carefully, thoughtfully, and at a pace that feels healthy. While on tour or during downtime, she enjoys her alone time, reconnecting with herself and finding joy in the quiet moments she used to miss. Her focus, as she said in multiple interviews, is on healing, stability, and modeling emotional honesty for her children. In her words, if her kids can see her process pain and still move forward with integrity, they'll learn to do the same. But Kelly's private life isn't just about healing. It's about helping. From the earliest years of her fame, she's been deeply committed to causes that often go unnoticed in the tabloids. She took part in Idol Gives Back, partnered with UNICEF, Feeding America, and Stomp Out Bullying, and became an ambassador for the March of Dimes, walking in their campaigns and helping fundraise for neonatal care and maternal health. One of her most personal commitments came through her involvement with House of Hope, a nonprofit supporting orphaned and HIV-affected children in South Africa. Kelly didn't just write a check. She traveled there herself, met the children, listened to their stories, and later performed You Still Won't Know What It's Like, a song written in their honor. And then there's her animal rescue work. On her Texas ranch, Kelly has taken in over 80 animals, blind dogs, amputee goats, and horses recovering from colic. These weren't vanity pets. They were injured, abandoned, or medically fragile animals who needed care. Kelly made sure they got it, often nursing them back to health herself.